Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. It means everything to me. Before we get started, I just want to say to everybody that has been reaching out to me, showing me support, I appreciate you so much. When I tell you I appreciate you, I truly, truly mean it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Please leave me a comment. Please leave me a like. It would mean so much to me. You guys are just the best, and I thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the Towhid family. 77-year-old Altafan Nessa. 56-year-old Iron Islam. 54-year-old Tawadul Islam. 21-year-old Tanvir Towhid. 19-year-old Farbin Towhid, and her twin brother, 19-year-old Farhan Towhid. By all accounts, they were your typical all-American family. They lived in a beautiful home on Pine Bluff Drive in Allen, Texas. The family first lived in New York after coming over from Bangladesh. Dad worked as a baker to support his family while working towards achieving a master's degree in economics from City University of New York, Queens College. Friends would recall how proud he was when he finally achieved his goal. The family would then move to Texas, and Tawadul would get a job at Citi as a security tech lead analyst. The family was described by many as just wonderful. A very welcoming family who treated everyone like they were their own kids. Great people who genuinely touched the lives of everyone they came into contact with. Good people who had bright futures ahead of them. 19-year-old Farbin was a very talented artist who had a full scholarship to New York University. April 3rd, 2021. Police arrive at the Towhid home to conduct a welfare check that was called in. What they find is something that should only be seen in the movies. The entire family and grandma were all shot to death. So what the hell happened? Who was responsible for this? The answer is so incredibly disturbing. These deaths were the result of a murder-suicide pact that was made by brothers, Tanvir and Farbin. And Farbin breaks it all down in a very lengthy Instagram post. Hey everyone, I killed myself and my family. If I'm going to die, I might as well get some attention. I'm going to cover 4 very important issues I encountered throughout my life. Who knows, some good might come of it. For those who don't know, I've had depression since 9th grade. 2016. Not the damn I failed my test depression everyone says they have. More like a I only cut myself twice today. That's better than usual. I remember the first time I cut myself. It was on August 22nd, 2017, and I did it with a pair of craft scissors. The blades were pretty dull, so it was more of a rubbing the scissors against my arm instead of a clean cut. Eventually my skin gave. After a couple more lines, the relief started to kick in. It didn't take long to become addicted to the feeling. Unfortunately, scissors made for kids aren't very good at cutting flesh, so I had to move on to knives. It was pretty easy just taking one from the kitchen. They were dull, but they worked much better. Initially, I would cut myself every week, but the frequency increased drastically as junior year progressed. I moved on to cutting weekly, every other day, daily, and finally multiple times a day. The need to cut leaked into the times I was at school. I can't count how many calculus quizzes I turned in blank since I was too busy in the bathroom cutting myself. To make matters worse, my 3 best friends dropped me. They tried to help me before they eventually realized that dealing with a depressed person is a lot of work. I was angry at first, but in retrospect, what were they supposed to do? In comes my first point, getting help. Everyone says you could talk to me, and others post those useless mental health links on their stories. But when you actually interact with someone who's depressed, you realize how impossible fixing them is. I've never benefited from telling someone about how depressed I was. It always ends with them having to leave me. The only people who really stick around are those obligated to. Just pretend you care and never directly offer to help. It'll only waste our time. I hit my breaking point sometime in the winter that year, when I cut myself until I physically couldn't feel anything. I couldn't hide being depressed anymore. Once I told my dad, he worked his ass off trying to help. Eventually, I was thrown in some teen mental health camp where I was finally diagnosed and got medication, which seemed to help.
They also gave me coping mechanisms like journaling and whatnot along with therapy. Things were looking up. Second semester of junior year, as some of you know, was a big change. I became fucking cool. By the time summer came around, I lost most of my fat and stopped being the cringy, awkward kid I used to be. End of summer rolls around, and in comes senior year, the best year of my life. I somehow managed to get a girlfriend who was far out of my league, become a programming god, and made a solid new friend group. Things got even better when I got into computer science at UT Austin, which is supposed to be a big deal. I never really cared about school, but it felt good having something others cared about. My life was starting to sound perfect, right? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. My life was perfect. That was the issue. My life was perfect, but that didn't change the fact that I was depressed. I would still have urges to cut myself or end up crying myself to sleep. I tried doubling my medications, which worked, but only temporarily. Every solution was always temporary. Fast forward to college. I moved in with three of my best friends. Going to college was going to be a fresh start, where I could start putting effort, get good grades, and hopefully become normal. I couldn't do it. I swear, I tried, but I just couldn't. For the life of me, I can't comprehend how you people do it. You people are okay with spending hours upon hours listening to lectures, doing homework, and studying for at least 4 years so you can get a job and make some money. You plan on working at that job for a third of your life, sleep for the other third, and God knows what for the last. How are you satisfied with that? Don't you ever get bored or upset with the menial stuff? Doesn't it feel like you're wasting your time? It's not fair. I did everything right. Every little fucking thing right. And I'm still just a pathetic. Everyone's allowed to worry about the future, and I can't even think about what I'm going to do tomorrow without enduring an existential crisis. It's not fair how everyone can be so content, while I can't even fathom being happy. No matter what I do, I just can't be happy. It bugged the hell out of me. I started doing poorly in my classes, and at the end of the semester, I had my first breakdown in months. I only cried, laughed, and talked to myself while punching a wall for hours. Compared to the other times I broke, this one wasn't so bad. At this point in time, my two suite mates knew I was extremely depressed. I mean, it would have been kind of weird if they didn't. My roommate, on the other hand, gave me the impression that I was a joke. Apparently, he thought he also had depression, and the only reason I needed medication while he didn't was because he had willpower. I guess in a way he was right. My second point starts with a question, mainly directed to anyone who thinks they're depressed. Why? You had a bad breakup in the 10th grade? You flunked your physics exam? I swear at this point, you could claim you're depressed if you shed a tear after watching a Try Not to Cry compilation. I remember senior year when I arrived at school after a little cutting session, and one of my friends said, I'm going to kill myself because they had a physics test that day. The best part is, they knew I had depression, the real kind. Before people start claiming I'm gatekeeping being sad, that's not the case at all. Of course, it makes sense for people to be bummed out after forgetting about a quiz or not acing the interview. My problem is that while many people feel sadness, it just isn't depression. Depression is when you feel the same sadness to the point where it interrupts your sleep or prevents you from doing your hobbies for over 2 weeks. And if calling someone the R word as a joke is considered wrong, then treating depression the same way should be too. Also, I don't get why mental illnesses are treated differently from physical ailments. No one expects someone without legs to walk, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise that someone depressed has a hard time being normal. I think this stems from the idea of a consciousness, separate from the physical structure of the brain. But if someone took a fundamental part of your brain, you might become a completely different person. Winter break came along, and I tried to get reinvested in school by programming. I made a 3D graphics engine with my brother, which was pretty fun. I was ready to give school another shot. I never really had a choice, did I? It just didn't work. I just couldn't care. I tried my best to keep it together, but my close suite mate noticed I was extremely off. He offered to talk to me, and I made a mistake of accepting. I told him everything. He knew most of my ideals already, but there was one thing I shared that haunted him. Don't worry, I'll reveal it in a little bit. All you need to know is that a few weeks after our talk, I was kicked out of the dorm. I can't really blame them, but I do wish they would have at least made the decision with me. A short week after getting evicted, I dropped out of college. I needed to get a will to live before I could give my motivation to some piece of paper. I spent the first few weeks of being a dropout by just watching shows with my older brother. If you think my situation was fucked up, his was much worse. The dude is a fucking genius, but is too depressed and socially anxious to do anything with it. He had to go through the same shit I did, except by himself. I would have killed myself a long time ago if he weren't there. The first and most important show we watched was The Office. This leads to my third major point. The Office should have ended when Michael left. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of good episodes afterwards. Seasons 3 and 7 were my favorites, but eventually it all went to shit. The whole point is that it's people in funny but plausible situations, but then they introduce Robert California, who convinces the owner of a multi-million-dollar company to make him the fucking CEO. Then this stupid British chick, whose name I can't even remember, takes Andy's fucking job and nobody backs him up. The show has them all bond and nobody backs him up. What the fuck is that? It's not realistic at all, and it spits in the face of all the character development we've had. Speaking of which, why does Andy have to go insane in the last season? Out of every character on the show, he grew the most. He had anger issues and was a goddamn savant, but grew into someone really caring and genuine. His family gets destroyed, and he's the one who cleans the mess up, but then randomly decides to go on this stupid boat trip for no reason. This is the character who traveled all the way to Florida for Erin, but he just leaves her to ride a boat without her. And to top it all off, he gets the worst ending of the group. We kept watching until February 21st, 2021. That's the day my older brother came into my room with a proposition. If we can't fix everything in a year, we'll kill ourselves and our family. Allow me to explain. Anyone who knew me knew that I operate on pure logic. Every decision I make is based on a pros-cons list, including the one to kill my family. Everyone thinks the meaning of life is this deep, unsolvable mystery, but the conclusion I came to is really simple. The only reason for existence is happiness. In fact, every decision you make is solely because it contributes to your overall happiness. I know many of you will disagree with me, but hopefully I can convince you with a few examples. There's the obvious choices we make, like watching movies or playing video games, which make us happy directly. But then there's the most obscure and less obvious decisions. Students don't attend school for direct happiness, but they view the alternative as worse for their happiness, whether it be disappointing their parents or not having a future, so they go, thus contributing to their total happiness. The others who skip view school as the worst decision and feel the short-term happiness is more valuable. Some of you religious people might say only you live to please God, but the act of worship is yet another decision that makes you content. Even some selfish things, like going to your annoying friend's birthday party, is something to make you happy, because all your friends knowing you skipped would make you feel worse. Going to work, taking drugs, even taking out the trash are decisions we make for happiness and happiness only. If the only reason to live is for happiness, then logically, you shouldn't live if you aren't happy. That makes sense, right? Imagine waking up, being waterboarded for an hour, electrocuted for 20 minutes, forced to watch the first half of season 9 of The Office, and finally put to sleep. Now imagine repeating the cycle daily until you died. In this scenario, I'm sure that every single one of you would prefer death, whether you want to admit it or not. Although I'm not in quite as bad of a situation, it's bad enough to warrant suicide. I live in so much pain and turmoil that it isn't worth living anymore. I'm aware that my death will bring sadness to everyone else, but I guess I'm just too selfish to care. Not selfish enough, however. There's my family. The one reason I forced myself to live for 19 years. I know I said I operate on logic, but the one emotional aspect of my life is the only reason I'm here. I love my family. I genuinely do. And that's exactly why I decided to kill them. If I killed just myself, they would be miserable. They would spend the rest of their lives feeling guilt, despair, and a multitude of other adjectives that mean sad. Even after they got over it, it would have become a permanent facet in their lives. Someone I loved killed themselves, and I couldn't do anything about it. Instead of having to deal with the aftermath of my suicide, I could just do them a favor and take them with me. None of us would ever have to feel sad ever again. My brother and I tried for a little bit. There were small improvements, like me doubling my medication again, diagnosed with ADHD. But we eventually realized we were just biding our time. Waiting a year was way too long. Why not wait a month? The plan was simple. We get 2 guns. I take one and shoot my sister and grandma, while my brother kills our parents with the other. Then we take ourselves out. I would say the only hard part of the plan was getting the guns, but that would be a lie. My fourth and final point: gun control in the United States is a joke. All my brother had to do was go to the gun shop, say something about wanting a gun for home defense, sign some forms, and that was it. There was a question asking if he had any mental illnesses, but get this, he lied. He literally just said no. They didn't ask for proof or if he was taking any medications, which he was. Just a yes or no question. Literally, anyone can get a gun if they haven't been officially diagnosed. Thanks for making the process so easy. In the last few minutes, I realized I needed to get rid of all my money and decided to do so by helping out some people on GoFundMe. In my last few minutes, I realized I needed to get rid of all my money and decided to do so by helping out some people on GoFundMe. I would just like to say, what the fuck? The fundraisers are organized by Most Raised. Why the fuck is it organized in the most ineffective way of raising money as possible? In the most ineffective way of raising as much money as possible. How are you supposed to start your project if the top ones are the ones with the most money? That doesn't seem to make sense. Literally no sense. I literally scrolled for 20 minutes and the least amount raised was $35,000. This shit is pissing me off. It pissed me off to the point where I'm just going to donate to charity now. I know it's less effective, but I don't care. Fuck the people who programmed the filter on GoFundMe. I don't care how many lives you changed. And now we're here. Well, I guess my family and I aren't. But you get the point.
Their deaths were sudden, and their loved ones are still trying to understand.
It's times like these that we turn towards God's mercy, and where we don't have answers.
On Thursday, hundreds gathered at the Islamic Association of Allen to heal.
We need each other.
To attend the funerals of the Tohid family to celebrate their lives in prayer.
To the family and those that are friends and close to the family, our hearts are with you.
6 people, a dad and mom, 3 kids, and their grandmother were killed by murder-suicide. But no matter how they left this earth,
what we leave behind is the good and the after effect and the trickle down of the good that we have left.
Prayer for the best outcome of a very difficult situation.
In the Quran, it says, with hardship comes ease.
We pray that it is rare and that it provides us that chance to be here for the family as they struggle through something that is definitely unprecedented in their own lives.
They lean on their faith and on each other as they honor the lives of the Tohids.